appreciate that. When there's an agenda item that calls for a public hearing, please understand the applicant will be allowed to speak first. After the applicant finishes, the public will be asked to speak. When called upon to speak, please approach the podium to my left and state your name and address for the public record. You will have one opportunity per agenda item to speak unless a Plan Commission member requires clarification and wishes to ask you a question. After the public finishes speaking, we will allow the applicant to have a final statement if they choose, and then the commission will take action on that particular agenda item. The Common Council has adopted rules of decorum for city boards and commissions, including the adoption of a civility pledge. No person shall personally attack a board or commission member, city official or staff, or any other person. No person shall make irrelevant, unduly repetitive, or offensive, threatening, slanderous, defamatory, or obscene remarks, or act in such a manner as to disrupt or disturb the orderly conduct of the meeting, including hand clapping, stomping of feet, whistling, shouting, or other demonstrations. Thank you for all your understanding on this. Now on to the agenda. First item on the agenda is roll call, please.
Ms. Shireman?
Here.
Mr. Lowenstein? Mr. Nichols?
Here.
Mr. Bowen? Here. Mr. Kulabali? Ms. Davy?
Here.
Councilmember Esslinger?
Here.
Ms. Prop?
Here.
Vice Chair Kiefer?
Here.
Chairman Perry?
Here. All right, approval of the August 1st, 2023 minutes. Plan Commission?
Move to accept as written. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on this motion? Okay, I see none, so this can be a voice vote. So all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Any abstentions? Okay, the minutes are passed. Item number 1, accept sidewalk easement along the south side of West Lincoln Avenue, east of Elmwood Avenue, 750 Elmwood Avenue. It's the Board of Regents, the University of Wisconsin System is the owner, and the City of Oshkosh is the applicant. Have there been any site inspections of this particular property? Ms. Shireman, Ms. Davy, Mr. Lowenstein. All right, I will accept the staff report as part of the record. Please present your summary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The city is requesting the acceptance of a 2,100 square foot sidewalk easement located on the south side of West Lincoln Avenue, more specifically at 750 Elmwood Avenue. On the screen is an aerial photo showing the proposed location of the easement. The city is requesting this easement to allow the installation of public concrete sidewalk. Currently, Elmwood Avenue is under construction, and the contract includes sidewalk reconstruction. The easement will allow the city to construct sidewalk and provide continued access for future maintenance, and replacements or upgrades as needed. And the sidewalk will essentially function as if it were located in public right of way. This is the engineering drawing of the proposed easement. And with that, staff is recommending approval of the proposed sidewalk easement as requested.
Thank you for your report. Plan Commission, are there any technical questions to the staff on this agenda item? Any technical questions to the staff? Okay, I see none. I will allow this to be a public comment period. Is there any member of the applicant is here, but they don't need to speak. It's the city. So is there any member of the public that wishes to speak on this particular agenda item? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to close the public comment period and ask, the closing statement doesn't need to happen, so Commission, the action's upon you.
Move to accept the findings and recommendations as stated in the staff report. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on this motion? I'm seeing none, so let's have a roll call vote, please.
Ms. Shireman?
Aye.
Mr. Lowenstein?
Aye.
Mr. Nichols?
Aye.
Mr. Bowen?
Aye.
Ms. Davy?
Aye.
Councilmember Esslinger?
Aye.
Ms. Prop?
Aye.
Vice Chair Kiefer?
Aye.
Chairman Perry?
Aye.
Motion carried 9-0.
Wonderful. Item number 2 is a street right-of-way dedication for widening the east 1,000 block of Bauman Street. The city of Oshkosh is the owner and applicant. There been any site inspections of this property? Ms. Davy, Mr. Kiefert, Ms. Shireman, Mr. Nichols? All right. I will accept the staff report as part of the record. Please present your summary.
Thank you. The city's requesting the right-of-way widening of the 1,000 block of Bauman Street, located on the east side of Bauman Street. On the screen is our current air photo showing the proposed dedication. The proposed dedication will widen the existing 60-foot width of Bauman Street up to approximately 66 feet in this section. On August 8th, 2023, the Common Council approved a GDP SIP application for a commercial marina located at 1,000 Bauman Street, this site right here. The approval is based on that the owner is responsible for providing a sufficient amount of parking stalls on site. However, due to lot constraints, a base standard modification was given so that some of the required parking could be placed off-site in the public right-of-way. This is the site plan that was originally submitted with the GDP SIP submittal, showing where the proposed parking will be within the Bauman Street right-of-way after the right-of-way is widened. The dedication is included on a draft CSM, which is currently under review by staff, which is right there on the screen. After approval by the Common Council, the CSM will be recorded at the Register of Deeds where the dedication will become official. And staff is recommending approval of the right-of-way dedication as proposed.
Just slight clarification, only the zone change portion was approved by council in August. The intent is that then this will go along with the GDP SIP on the meeting next week. So far, council's only approved the rezone. Council did, however, approve the actual pavement back probably 6-9 months ago for the angled parking. So this right-of-way dedication just lines up with the previous approval by council to add those angled parking stalls. The actual GDP will be next week.
Okay. Any technical questions from Mr. Nichols?
Does this right-of-way only accommodate those 11 parking stalls, or was it more than that?
It is only those 11 stalls.
Okay, so said another way, if they needed 12 parking stalls, they would have to have additional right-of-way granted.
Yeah, Public Works would have to see how if they could reconfigure that. The 11 came from a configuration that Public Works could fit based on spacing, distances, corner clearances. The actual 11 was Public Works when they designed what could actually be fit within that public right-of-way section.
Yeah, just a quick add to that. So I think originally the engineering plans had 9. After discussions with community development and the applicant, we're able to get that up to 11, and that's where we settled on as of right now.
Mr. Lowenstein?
So the work is already done. Could you talk a little bit about our role in the concrete that's already poured there and with all these approvals?
So
It seems like it's kind of a moot point whether we approve it or not at this point.
So council already approved putting in the angled parking. That was done just in 6-ish months ago. But in doing it, we also have to CSM it and do the actual dedication. The process of getting that CSM prepared took a little longer, which is why the dedication is just getting here. Those 11 parking spaces are there and approved by council. The question from the marina side is separate that council will take up next week, whether kind of how many boat slips they can have to go along with this parking. But the parking for public purposes was already approved by council, I said, a number of months ago when they approved putting in those angled parking stalls.
So to Mr. Lowenstein's point, though, we're doing this out of order a bit.
So not really. Usually the dedication of right-of-way follows the approval. We wouldn't dedicate right-of-way unless council had approved putting those parking stalls in, because we wouldn't want to dedicate right-of-way just to dedicate right-of-way. So really, it's following through on that previous action, just the timing it took to get the necessary legal documents prepared after that decision was already made.
Sorry, maybe I don't mean approval, I mean pouring of the concrete.
So the pouring of concrete, typically this, yes, would have been done. The timing of the project and getting it done, it just took longer than expected.
Any other technical questions? No other technical questions from Plan Commission? Okay, I'm going to open this to public comment as well. The applicant has already spoken, so is there any member of the public that wishes to comment on this particular agenda item? Any member of the public that wishes to comment on this agenda item? Okay, I'm closing the public comment period since I see none. And I do not need a closing statement from the applicant, so commission, the action is upon you.
Motion to adopt the findings and recommendations as stated in the staff report.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any discussion on the motion? All right, seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote.
Ms. Shireman?
Aye.
Mr. Lowenstein?
Aye.
Mr. Nichols?
Aye.
Mr. Bowen?
Aye.
Ms. Davy?
Aye.
Councilmember Esslinger?
Aye.
Ms. Prop?
Aye.
Vice Chair Kiefer?
Aye.
Chairman Perry?
Aye.
Motion carried 9-0.
Okay, item number 3 is a public hearing. It's a zone change from institutional district I to 2-flat residential 10 district, a TR 10, for the vacant property at the 500 block of West South Park Avenue between Ohio Street and Michigan Street. City of Oshkosh is the owner and applicant. Has there been any site inspections? Ms. Shireman, Ms. Prop, Ms. Davy, Mr. Bowen? Okay. I will accept the staff report as part of the record. Please present your summary.
Thank you, Chairman. The applicant requests a zone change from the existing institutional district to 2-flat residential 10 for the property located on the south side of the 500 block of West South Park Avenue between Ohio Street and Michigan Street. The subject area included in the zone change request consists of a vacant lot with a total of .1722 acres. The site was previously used as an old church site that is no longer needed, and the surrounding area consists of commercial uses to the north and the southwest, residential uses to the west and south, and institutional uses to the east. On July 18th, 2023, Plan Commission approved an offer to purchase this property from the property owner directly to the west at 525 West South Park Avenue. This request is intended to provide appropriate zoning for future residential uses of the property and is necessary to be able to combine this site with their existing residential property. Staff is supportive of the proposed rezone to TR10 as the zoning designation is consistent with the 2040 Comprehensive Land Use Plan recommendation of light density residential. The proposed zoning will also be consistent with the neighboring properties to the south and the west. And staff recommends approval of the zone change with the findings listed in the staff report.
All right, thank you for your report. All right, Plan Commission, are there any technical questions on this agenda item? Any technical questions? This is her first report. Don't let her off easy. Just kidding. Okay, I see no technical questions. Since this is a public hearing, we do ask that the applicant speak. I don't know if they need to.
We're the applicant.
Right. So, are there any other members of the public that wish to speak on this particular agenda item? Oh, hold on.
You gotta go up there if you want to talk.
If you want to talk, you got to go to the podium. State your name and address for our records.
Just looking at the aerial here.
Name and address.
Mike Carroll's 1418 Oshkosh, Wisconsin 54901. Looking at are there tire tracks in that Greenland right there? That around in the blue area? I'm just trying to figure out the vernacular use. What people have been using it for the past?
So it's been a city-owned vacant lot for a number of years. The
okay.
applicant, the owner to the west of the property, requested to buy it from the city to give them a little more green space, a little more yard space.
Cool.
So this is a zone change so they can legally combine their parcels.
Thank you.
Any other comments from the public on this agenda item? Okay, I'm seeing none, so I'm going to close the public hearing. We do not need a closing statement from the applicant, so commission, the action is upon you.
Motion to adopt the findings and recommendations from the staff report.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any commission discussion on this motion? Any commission discussion? Okay, seeing none, let's have a roll call vote, please.
Ms. Shireman?
Aye.
Mr. Lowenstein?
Aye.
Mr. Nichols?
Aye.
Mr. Bowman? Ms. Davy?
Aye.
Councilmember Esslinger?
Aye.
Ms. Prop?
Aye.
Vice Chair Kiefer?
Aye.
Chairman Perry?
Aye.
Motion carried 9-0.
All right, item number 4 on the agenda is comprehensive land use plan map amendment from interstate commercial to community facility for property located at 425 North Washburn Street. 425 North Washburn LLC is the owner, and River Valley Church Incorporated is the applicant. Have there been any site inspections? Mr. Lowenstein, Ms. Shireman, Ms. Prop, Mr. Bowen, Ms. Davy, and Mr. Kiefer. All right. I will accept the staff report as part of the record. Please present your summary.
Thank you. So the subject site is a 10-acre commercial property located along North Washburn Street. Currently contains an office building as well as a parking area. It was originally used as a car dealership and was most recently used as an office facility for Oshkosh Corporation. Surrounding area consists primarily of commercial uses to the north and the south along North Washburn Street, and then residential and open space uses to the west and Highway 41 to the east. Here's a view of the subject site. The applicant is requesting to use the site as a church. That use would require a comprehensive plan amendment from the existing interstate commercial designation to community facility. Also would require a rezone to institutional district. And this was brought to a Plan Commission workshop back in June, with Plan Commission being generally supportive of the proposal. However, staff does have concerns that amending the future land use designation would disrupt the cohesiveness of the commercial frontage along North Washburn Street. Staff also believes that the existing interstate commercial designation continues to be the highest and best use, as the site is located within the I-41 commercial corridor. Also, the comprehensive plan includes goals which include encouraging compatible land use development and also promoting land use decisions that do not conflict with adjoining properties. So staff feels that this amendment would conflict with these goals. Staff also evaluated other institutional land uses along I-41 and neighboring communities and found that institutional land uses in Neenah and Grand Chutes were not within primary established commercial areas, but were surrounded by other institutional uses and residential land uses. So staff is recommending denial of the requested land use map amendment with the findings that the proposed amendment is not consistent with the goals and objectives of the comprehensive plan and is not consistent with the surrounding area.
All right, thank you for your report. Plan Commissioner, is there any technical questions for the staff at this time? Ms. Prop?
Not sure if this is a technical question, but I don't recall that the staff was strongly recommending that we not do this when we had our workshop.
At a workshop, we did raise the concerns, but at a workshop setting, we don't give you a recommendation. We only lay out what the applicant is proposing to you during the workshop setting. Staff did take a look at this, and, our role is to evaluate any proposal against our ordinances and best practices from a planning standpoint. I know Plan Commission largely supported it at that workshop, but ethically, we took a look and said, based on our comp plan, the primary planning principles that ethically we kind of had to recommend denial of it. We understand you previously supported it, but in doing what our role and our responsibility is, we dug into it, and this is what our recommendation to you would be.
Ms. Sherman?
Again, not sure it's a technical question, so I wasn't at the workshop, so when I read this, I was, kind of surprised by the general consensus of it going through. So I'd be interested to hear about, why this commission thought that, because maybe there's something I'm not taking into consideration, because when I look at it, it does not look like it belongs there from, there'd be too many modifications that need to be around the surrounding area to support it. So maybe I'm missing something, and that's sort of my question. Can someone help me paraphrase or remind what happened back then, that there was such strong consensus?
Let's wait on that.
We're going to wait on that until the speaking part.
Okay.
Any other technical questions? I do have one technical question. There is nothing that adjoins this that would be the same zoning or close to zoning?
No, there's no institutional in this area. It's suburban mixed use, SMU, kind of up and down the 41 corridor, both on the east and the west sides. And then single family residential with a mix of the DR6 and SR3 to the west of it. But there's no institutional zoning in that area.
And a second question is in surrounding communities, there are a couple examples of this type of building on the interstate. But when I went to look at one of them, I could clearly see that there was other institutional use surrounding it or near it or
Yep.
touching it.
Yeah, that's what we referenced kind of in our staff report there. We took a closer look at similar situations of institutional land uses along the 41 corridor in both Neenah and Grand Chute. In Neenah, you have other institutional land uses with a cemetery in the area as well as some single-family residential. It's not right in the middle of their commercial corridor. Further north in Grand Chute, as you go along kind of that curve in the I-41 corridor, you've got that very large institutional use. It's surrounded by single-family residential and multifamily residential. Again, it's not in kind of the middle of the commercial block.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. Any other technical questions? Ms. Davy?
When I look at this map and I look at the key over there, what does the gray just above this signify? Is that industrial or is that infrastructure?
No, it is.
Those are storage buildings there. So this is the land use map. So it shows us it being industrial because there's storage buildings in that location of that property.
Yeah. This map is existing kind of uses that you see out on the ground today.
Okay, so you're telling me that there's institutional,
Industrial.
just industrial?
Industrial
Oh,
storage
industrial,
buildings.
okay. And there is residential just behind it?
These are residential.
Any other technical questions? All right, I'm seeing none. We're going to have a public comment period. So I'm going to open the public comment period and request a statement from the applicant. Is the applicant here today? Please approach the podium and state your name and address for our records, please.
Caleb Eyrig, 3550 Bambi Lane, Oshkosh. I sit on the board at River Valley Church, and I was the one that was here at June for the informal workshop. So just for those that weren't there at that session, just to give a quick little background, our current location is on High Ave across from the Oshkosh Museum. It's a 1.5 acre lot with less than 100 parking spots, and we're currently seeing Sunday attendance of about 700, 725. Over the last number of years, we've taken the steps of tearing down our parsonage, expanding the parking lot, moving to a third service, and now we're starting to max that out and turning people away, which we never want to have to do. We have been looking for a number of years for a suitable location. Renovating an existing building is 2 to 3 times cheaper than new construction, and so that's generally where we've been looking. And given the building sizes and parking requirements that we would need, that leads us primarily to commercial properties, repurposing commercial properties. We've been looking for a number of years, and this is the first property that we've found that poses a real possibility. When I came here in June and we talked through it, from my perspective, it was, I wouldn't say generally positive, I'd say overwhelmingly positive. I would agree staff raised some potential concerns around spot zoning and removal of the property from the tax base. And at that time, commission seemed not at all concerned with those. I personally was very surprised when I received the staff report this last week. Mark and I had a conversation, and I understand where he's coming from, and just ethically best and highest use kind of thing. So I get that. I'm not taking it personally there. But I would like to just address a couple of the concerns raised in the staff report. So one of them, there was a couple comments around disrupting the cohesiveness of the commercial frontage or promoting land use that conflicts with adjoining properties. I think there's a couple other people here to make public comment that can better address those concerns. Another one was the acknowledgement that future land use maps are intended to be used as a general reference tool, but need to be revised to accommodate logical requests in future land use. Land use maps have never and will never account for churches. We have to fit in where we can, where we're able. I believe this is a logical request to the future land use. I'd also like to point out that in section 30-50 of the city code, it's the definition of institutional zoning districts. Intent: this district is intended to permit both large and small-scale institutional development, including those on single sites within larger areas of both residential and non-residential zoning districts. There is no requirement to have institutional neighbors. If that was the case, churches would be extremely limited to where they could be located. I'd also like to point out, this was mentioned in June, actually by one of the commission members, not myself. There used to be a church on North Washburn Street in Oshkosh. It's the property that's now the Super Walmart. We have precedent to have a church on North Washburn in Oshkosh. And I'd also like to point out that Father Carr's across the highway. I don't believe it's currently zoned institutional, but the future land use map actually shows that as being institutional. So a desire to convert that to institutional, also on the 41 corridor. So I understand staff's desire to pursue the best and highest. I could make the argument that I don't think Shopko and Kmart being converted to storage units was the best and highest, but that's technically commercial use. We'd also be willing to pursue a conditional use on this property, but code does not allow indoor institutional as a conditional use on something that's zoned suburban mixed use. So we are forced into the requirement to request a rezone to institutional. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other okay, so now we're going to open this to other members of the public. Is there any member of the public that wishes to speak on this agenda item? Please approach the podium and state your name and address for our records, please.
My name is Steve Harris. I live on 365 Westbrook Drive, which is on the map there, back in the residential district. 54904 is my zip code. I living just a few blocks away from the property in question at 425 North Washburn. I'm writing in support of amending the comprehensive land use plan map, effectively rezoning the property from interstate commercial to institutional facility to enable the acquisition by River Valley Incorporated. I believe this act will not only enhance our community, but also breathe new life into an existing vacant building, using this space for a new church instead of something like storage facilities would put to better use our limited resources and add value to our neighborhood. River Valley, a well-regarded community church, supports many people, including those less fortunate. Their influence extends positively throughout the community. This rezoning may help the west side of the Highway 41 corridor by attracting 600 to 800 people every Sunday morning, potentially boosting local businesses. Moreover, by transforming the property into an institution rather than a commercial or industrial zone, we gain a peaceful environment free from the noise and disruption of power tools or heavy machinery associated with the industrial spaces. In conclusion, rezoning 425 North Washburn Street to institutional ensures we utilize the existing infrastructure wisely, attracting members of the community who are quite likely to patronize local businesses and maintain the quiet peacefulness character of the neighborhood. This aids in bringing development, unity, and growth within the community. As a local stakeholder and a concerned resident, I sincerely hope you will consider this proposal favorably. I also just want to talk about the area north of the area you're talking about, because that has been sitting there empty for 10 plus years. And I'm not sure what and I know you're saying it's industrial, but it's really a residential area that's sitting empty, that the stream goes through, so. Thank you.
Thank you. All righty, other members of the public who wish to speak on this agenda item, please approach the podium, state your name and address for our records, please.
Eric Giadella at 1642 River Mill Road in Oshkosh. I'm here speaking on behalf as an owner of Rev's Bull Bar and Grill, EMK Ventures, located at 275 North Washburn Street. We've been there for going on 9 years on Washburn Street, and Oshkosh Corp was a great neighbor over there at that property. And I'm here to support the change to an institutional zoning permit for River Valley. I believe they would be an amazing tenant for that property. Knowing their foothold in the community and what they do, I believe they'd make a beautiful property there. Seeing the back part of that property for many, many years, I know it hasn't been maintained very well at all. I believe that River Valley would have a beautiful looking facility there and a beautiful looking property that would just raise the stakes over there quite a bit to what we see now. On speaking on behalf of the institutional lots in Neenah and up the road a little bit, just by chance the last 10 days I got to do some traveling where I saw on the intersection of Highway 32 and 43 over by Sheboygan, is getting pretty built up there, and they have a huge church that has went up there and a very strong commercial market. And also this past weekend in De Pere, where there's been a lot of commercial improvements happening just after the Shuring Road exit heading north. They also have a large church right there. I think it can be done, and it can be a benefit for the community in those areas. I think we see that it's happening in those communities. I think it would definitely be something that would bring a lot of value and a lot of respect and appreciation to that, to our city in that location, and I'm here to support the change to an institutional zoning change. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other member of the public wish to speak? Any other member of the public wish to speak? Okay, seeing none, I will close the public hearing and public comment period. Does the applicant wish to make a final statement?
I feel bad the meeting's going so quick. I don't want to hold you back, but it'll be quick. I'd just like to follow up on a couple of the comments made. Yes, there in Grand Chute, it was Life Church moved into what used to be a Dick's Sporting Goods. Again, repurposing a large commercial property with existing parking. Oshkosh Corp was previously in this building for the last 13 years as corporate offices. They've reevaluated their office needs, and after 13 years in this building have pulled out of not only this but several other buildings in the property. Post-COVID, there's people aren't lining up for large office spaces. So the best and highest use based off the appraisal we just got is repurposing as industrial. So machine shop or something like that, especially with the loading doors in the back. I'd hate to see that. Just our plan is to do mostly interior renovations. So we're not looking to do major additions or significant exterior modifications, expand the parking, anything like that. We just want to kind of reconfigure the interior. But we've been in Oshkosh for just over 70 years, and our hope is that this facility would provide us with a home for the next 70. So thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. All right, Plan Commission, the action is upon you.
Motion to adopt the findings and recommendations as stated in the staff report.
Kind of pause you for a second.
Well, I know we would vote no if we don't want it.
If you are inclined to recommend approval of it, you will need to make findings to go along with your recommendation for approval. So I just want to throw that out there.
Point. Okay.
Because, or you can do it the way you did, but then you're also still going to have to make findings. If you want this to go forward to council with your blessing, make sure you make findings to go along with it. And by findings, I mean you specifically need to articulate why you believe this comp plan amendment makes sense to do.
Yeah.
Because right now the findings are
Right.
against
Got
it, so if you want
And
to,
so I will retract that motion. And do we have discussion first then?
you need to get a motion on the floor.
She can make the
Somebody else
motion.
make the
So we can do
motion.
this in two steps. You can make a motion on the floor, and then we can do a motion for findings after after a vote if you would like. But we do have to make findings.
All right,
to
got
make
it.
the decision.
Then is that an appropriate motion, and then we make findings, we amend it to make findings if it goes that way?
So I would just motion either to approve or deny to start. And then we can do the findings after. Typically, we do like to do motions in the affirmative because it makes yes means yes and no means no. So I get where you're going there, Kathy.
Well, somebody else make the motion. I want to hear the discussion.
So if you want yes to mean yes when you ultimately vote, you would make a motion to recommend approval.
I'm gonna make a motion for approval, just for the sake of ease.
Thank you.
Just because I
Thank you.
say yes
Second.
to yes and no to no.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the applicant's use of the parcel and change the comprehensive land use plan map. We need a second.
John second.
We do have a second. So Plan Commission, discussion on the motion. Councilmember Esslinger.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to do something that I don't like to do, and that is vote present on this issue, and let me explain why. At a prior meeting, as the staff said, this was brought up to see if there was any interest to go forward collectively. I think we stated that there was, so the staff went back and they did their job to find out if this is consistent. And they've come forward with, I think, some very good comments and criteria why it should not be. So then the applicant came forward and obviously has a differing opinion, and I think has made some very good comments, quite frankly. And so as a council member, again, I have a different role here, and I don't want to vote, and I don't even know if I'm voting if I want to vote to approve this or not at this point in time. But I think out of respect for the staff and the respect for the applicant, there's more people for a council member to listen to. I'm sure that if this gets denied or approved, the applicant is going to have some people that are going to want to contact 7 council members. And I don't want to prejudice my opinion. Quite frankly, again, as I said, I really don't even have an opinion on this. There may be something that the staff could come up with something before a council meeting yet, and the applicant could. So, you know, I guess you could make that argument for just about anything, just like with the voting facility. Well, you voted in favor of that. Well, yeah, but there's nobody here. Nobody said that they were against it. There were originally, but that's gone. So, you know, if you want to get the opinion, or you want a council member to understand, you do actually have to come to meetings and you have to let them know. Otherwise, I'm going to assume that it doesn't matter one way or the other. This clearly matters. And again, I think the staff and the applicant have made some very, very compelling reasons why it should and why it should not. So I'm going to wait for that time where whatever happens here, if this does come to the council, that will give the applicant some more time, and I respect their time and what they want to do, so I want to give them that time. I'm not saying I'm voting for it in the end or against it. I need more time to talk to more people, and I'm sure they want to talk to me. I don't want to prejudice their opinion or how they approach it. So whatever happens, Mr. Chairman, just so you understand, and the rest of the Plan Commission members understand where I'm coming from.
Okay, thank you. Just for clarification to the rest of the Plan Commission, I believe that whatever our action is, it will go to the council because this is a recommendation rather than anything statutory or ordinance based. So it goes to the council, whatever that decision ends up being. All right, Ms. Shireman.
Is it true that the Father Carr's land will be zoned institutional or rezoned institutional, like the petitioner said?
Father Carr's won't be rezoned. It is what it is. It's been there quite a while. Father Carr's presently is zoned suburban mixed use, just looking at our zoning map. There would be no intention to rezone it. It's an existing, non-conforming type of land use.
Two more. Also, the house to the north, or that area to the north by the stream that they reference, what is that zoned?
So all of that is zoned, again, suburban mixed-use commercial. It's been on the market for a number of years. It's the old Keenest property. And it's being marketed for commercial sale right now, and has been for a while. Property's got some challenges with wetlands and floodplain, and
Right.
there's reasons it hasn't yet developed, but it is commercially zoned.
It is commercially zoned, okay, so I wanted to make sure of that, because sometimes the appearance of that makes it seem different, because it looks like a residence, but it is zoned commercial. Okay, and then I'm positive I'm not gonna get this correct either, but isn't there like there's like heavy industrial and then commercial and then light use, and like, where does institutional fall? You know what I'm asking?
Yeah.
We've had other things
So
where they've
in-
come out the north side of town, and we were, talking about, is that heavy industrial, or is that light industrial, or?
So institutional land uses don't necessarily fall in what you would typically think of in that pyramid of, really that pyramid is typically looking at intensity of use. Industrial is your highest intensity of use, and then you go down, commercial is less intense than industrial, residential is lowest intensity. Institutional land uses cover a very broad range of things that can take on a property and have very different perspectives on intensity. Religious uses are an example of an institutional land use. They have an intensity based on the size and the scope facility. Schools are an institutional land use that have a different intensity. You look at some of the new, Vel Phillips or something, those are relatively intense land uses at schools. So institutional, which is really what we're talking about here, it's institutional land use. As a community, we have to look at it that as a whole. Institutional type land uses, they don't slide into that typical pyramid you'd think of. It's just because there's a huge variety of what can go in institutional.
Got it, thanks.
Mr. Bowman.
This is probably more of a technical question. To the point that churches don't really fit anywhere, which I think I would probably concur with, I guess, is do we classify a sort of like church use, religious use specifically? I can't remember how our code reads. Or do we have like a sort of a place of congregation type definition for it?
We define institutional land uses, which would be a variety of things.
And then that includes
Churches
a
fall
church,
within that,
a
day-by-day
church.
warming shelters, schools, except there's a litany of your non-profit type of land uses that also fall in that category. We don't specifically enumerate one of them. They're all institutional.
So do we, in our matrix of acceptable uses within the different classifications, does the dot for the church show up in any other boxes? Or is it just in the institutional?
Institutional residential indoor institutional, gotta get my terms right, is in a number of districts. If you give me a second, I can grab the code and tell you which ones it's all in. It's not only in institutional.
It is not in any commercial districts. It's in some residential. And they do, the code.
Mr. Bone, do you have any other questions, or are you waiting for? Yeah. Mark, would you rather just, okay.
Indoor institutional is a conditional use permit only, allowed in essentially, back to Ms. Sharman's question about the continuation of uses, from rural holdings, which is our least intense zoning district, through all of the single-family, multifamily residential districts, institutional, and a neighborhood mixed-use NMU, which is our lowest commercial district. It is not in any of the districts above neighborhood mixed use.
For mixed use, all the large scale, commercial stuff. Got it.
That answer it?
All right, Mr. Lowenstein.
So I just want to kind of, it's an interesting question, right, is so when we do long-term planning, do we plan for churches and, or is it really, well, we just have to decide every time a church wants to?
Yeah, so when we do comprehensive land use planning, when we redo our comp plan, which is about once every 10 years, we do look at areas surrounding existing institutional land uses and look for, is there orderly growth of a facility around it? Do we specifically look for parcels where it's like an institutional land use makes sense going in over here and taking this over? No, because that's really hard to predict. We do have to kind of take them on a case-by-case basis because, to the gentleman's point, they are kind of that unique land use that it's hard to plan knowing something in the future may be available for an institutional land use.
And a bit of, I think you mentioned a bit of that, right? At some level of intensity, we say that shouldn't be it shouldn't be zoned institutional. We don't want to allow a church, well, in this case, in a heavy industrial zone. That would be a bigger conversation, or whatever, or that intensive use section of the city.
Correct. When we look at institutional land uses, we're looking at intensity of the use and the surrounding area and how it fits and if it's compatible.
Other discussion on the motion, Ms. Davy.
I'm inclined to support whatever we need to do to help this become a church property, and the reasons are, as it was stated earlier, it is a logical use. It's sustainable because they're not having to build anything new, and this doesn't have to be torn down. It's not going to look any different than it does now, unless maybe it looks nicer and more well kept. That makes sense to me, and since it's not going to appear to be any different as you're driving by on 41, I kind of don't understand why it's such a big deal. No offense, Mark, I just...
None taken.
I'm not understanding why that's so critical that this couldn't be changed for this. To me, it would be a very sustainable use for that area.
Any other discussion on the motion? Ms. Prop.
Well, I too came in thinking, gee, makes sense to repurpose this building. Perhaps a lot because they weren't going to change the exterior. The exterior was going to remain the same, which is not terribly attractive, but it's not ugly. But they don't need to redo the exterior. It'll look just like it did when Oshkosh Corporation had it, except that, as somebody pointed out, the back of the property might be improved on. And I don't remember what the applicant had said about that at the workshop. But one of our big issues is always repurposing these big box and vacant commercial properties. And I too thought this was going to be a good idea. But I also understand the staff not wanting to insert this here. To Margie's point, is there a way that we could make this happen and help the staff feel better and help us feel better that we're not violating our own comp plan?
Is that a question to me?
Yeah, I think it's
a
a
somebody in charge.
These are unique land uses, and that's why they go through this body and ultimately on to Common Council. Staff, we gave the recommendation we did because when you look at what we have to, the big picture of the city in its whole, we're not making another I-41 corridor. We have one. It's our primary commercial corridor in the city, which inherently has some benefits for certain types of commercial and land uses that go there. Highest best use along a major corridor typically is commercial. So that is where our recommendation is coming from. We only have one I-41 corridor, and we would, when possible, like to keep that intact for commercial, when possible. Then it's up to Plan Commission, ultimately Council, to evaluate these specific requests and say, in this instance, does it make sense to deviate and change that? The applicant is right, and we don't typically put new institutional community facilities into our comp plan because it's hard to have that crystal ball and know where they want to go. So you have to evaluate them when they come up.
Mr. Lowenstein.
So the other issue with this is I think of several vacant commercial properties along this stretch right now. Are we setting the precedent that this could all become churches? If we approve one, are we then looking at, well, there's that vacant, whatever it is, the carpet warehouse thing further south on 41? If another institutional comes along and wants to buy it, are we going to say well, we've set precedent, and now any of the building, I mean, well, it'd be hard to reject the second one. Let's put it that way as well. And so, sort of, we have to think about what we want that corridor to be. Because I think practically, it's a great use for that abandoned, empty building that doesn't have a clear use right now. So practically, I'm saying, let's make it a church, because that's very practical, and Margie's points are good. It would be reusing an old space. But in the long term, what do we want that 41 corridor to look like? And the next vacant building that comes along, where we're gonna say another institution, another church can buy that and convert it to, and then we have 4 or 6 churches along that stretch, because we've made
That would be terrible.
Well, it would just change the look of that corridor. And is that what we want? And that's all I'm at. I mean, yes, maybe that's what we want. And do we want, but that would be a long-term discussion about what we want the 41 corridor to look like.
And that is where it is.
I'm just feeling like I'm feeling torn, because there's a really good practical use for this building, but are we sort of setting a long-term precedent that, yeah, we don't see this necessarily as a commercial corridor anymore?
Yeah, this is where Plan Commission and Council, it is important to articulate your findings and your reasons why. Because then if future decisions are considered, can be looked back on what was the findings and the reasons something was approved.
Mr. Bowen.
So, I'm gonna compare this in a little bit of an apples and oranges kind of scenario here, so forgive me on that one, but we had I think we had a workshop for the old Kelly Kings on,
Algoma and Walter up there.
or whatever that was, with a group that was interested in converting that to a church use. It was small, it was underparked, it was, the access was, to call that access weird is being kind to that access. And I wasn't necessarily comfortable with inserting that use into that building because of onto that site, because of those sort of physical characteristics. I think in this one, you have Washburn, which is a very accessible arterial street that can carry a lot of traffic in and out, and can do so in a way that when that traffic is very concentrated, that it doesn't necessarily back up. You have an existing parking field that can accommodate a tremendous amount of vehicles. You have the ability to function in a way that it does not become an infringement from a functionality standpoint on the other properties around it. So to the point that I think we can't forecast every location that a church or other religious facility is going to have, we can make a distinction and say these are the characteristics of that use, of the church use, and that is hugely concentrated traffic at a really specific time at regular points here and there. So to the point, and I absolutely understand the point too, like, so the next time somebody comes in, well, does it fit, right? Like, does it fit into the carpet outlet that you're talking about? I don't think it does necessarily there. So I think that if we're going to approve this, I think that the findings that Mark is asking us to make from the Plan Commission would be that the specific physical characteristics of this particular property support this as a use in the way that others might not. And we can rely on that in the future to sort of guide our decision-making about what we're comfortable with approving when we're using these sorts of institutional zones. Because they are, the institutional zone, and I love the institutional zone, because I remember in the dark days of our old zoning code, we were trying to shoehorn university facilities into, I think we had to shoehorn what became the Culver Center into like a weird riverfront mixed use overlay or something like that. It didn't make any sense. So I think the institutional zone gives us a lot of really good flexibility and gives us, you know, the ability to do some things. But you are totally right that this is primarily a commercial corridor. Now, Washburn, in my opinion, is a secondary commercial corridor to Kohler. If you ask anybody, they want to be on the east side of 41. They want to be on the east side of 41. That's the way it is. They want to be south of 9th Avenue. So Washburn is not quite where, you know, where the action is at necessarily. So I'm okay with this in the grand scheme of things, but more so I'm okay with this from the standpoint of what are our findings, and are our findings such that we can use this to guide our decision making going forward, instead of saying, well, now we just let churches go wherever they want to go, and the next time that somebody comes in wanting to put a church into something that really doesn't fit, our hands are tied and we can't do anything about it. So I guess that would be my my position, and I will offer those findings, I suppose, if you want me to articulate those, but I don't want to step on anybody else's comments if they don't.
We have a motion on
Have
the
to
floor,
go
which
through
we'll
the
have to
motion
rectify
first.
first, but then we'll need a motion where Ed tells us his findings.
So start writing them down. Sir, is there any other discussion on this motion? Okay, I'm going to offer some statements as well. This is very challenging for me as well. And in the one part, everybody knows that I have a very difficult time voting against anything that is for the community betterment, nonprofits, churches, those types of things. It's a very challenging situation. It's very passionate, very close to my heart. The second time, I do have other issues that I must try and deal with as well, and it makes this very complicated for me. One of them is precedent setting. Precedent setting does open up a lot of doors. But the applicant themselves may have swayed me one way or the other by one word, which was shopco. And then I have to go into my my history of how I voted in the past for certain things. And so I know where I stand on this particular motion, but it's very challenging for me as a person. Any other discussion on the motion? Okay, I see none. Can we be reminded again what specifically this motion is?
So this motion is to recommend approval of the comprehensive plan amendment to community facilities to Common Council. That was a lot of words.
So we're going to have a roll call vote.
Since I'm first, I want to make sure I understand. So by saying aye, just that it can go forth and they can decide.
Yes means you want to recommend
Or we're
approval.
recommending it.
No means you want to recommend denial. So yes means you're for it. No means you're against it.
Okay.
Goes forward either way.
It goes forward either way.
But yes means you support them having a land use amendment. No would be you recommend they don't.
And we still have to come back for the formal
Zone change.
institution.
We're going to have to continue with the roll call vote here.
Ms. Shireman?
No.
Mr. Lowenstein?
No.
Mr. Nichols?
No.
Mr. Bowen? Ms. Davy?
Aye.
Councilmember Esslinger?
Present.
Ms. Prop?
Aye.
Vice Chair Kiefer?
Aye.
Chairman Perry?
No. So it's defeated on a 4-4 vote.
4-4. So it would go without recommend. I have to check if that goes within without recommendation or if it goes.
I think it would go without recommendation.
I believe it's without recommendation. Then.
Goes without right, because we are advisory, correct.
Yeah, I think that'll be a spirited conversation.
Kick the can. We should have just.
Yes.
We wouldn't have
This is a
had
kick the can.
The council let them do hash it all out.
So we can move on, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so item number 5 on the agenda is a specific implementation plan amendment for building entrance and refuse enclosure additions at 2130 South Washburn Street. Eric Larson of Premier Vision Properties is the owner and applicant. Have there been any site inspections? Ms. Davy, Ms. Prop? Okay, I will accept the staff report as part of the record. Please present your summary.
Thank you. So the subject site is located on the east side of South Washburn Street, south of West 20th Avenue. It is zoned suburban mixed-use district with a planned development overlay. Contains an office building, which was previously used as a Fox World Travel Training Center. Surrounding area consists of commercial uses as well as a cemetery to the north and industrial use to the west. Here's a view of the subject sites. The applicant plans to convert the building to an optometry clinic. They're also proposing a new entrance canopy at the southwest corner of the building, and an additional pedestrian walk around the building on the east side of the building. They're also proposing to remove 7 parking stalls on the north end of the parking lot for construction of a refuse enclosure. That placement of the refuse enclosure will require a base standard modification, as code requires refuse enclosures to be at least as far back as the building from the street and not located between the street and the building. And this refuse enclosure is located between South Washburn Streets and the building. Staff does not have concerns with the proposed placement of the refuse enclosure, as it is a double-fronted lot with South Washburn Street to the west and 41 to the east. So there's a very limited area where they could fit that refuse enclosure, which to the north of the building would be or south of the building would be the locations that would meet code. However, that would result in difficulties for trucks accessing the dumpster enclosure. So to offset the requested BSM, staff is requesting that the applicant provide at least 30 landscaping points alongside it. We did not receive a rendering of the enclosure. However, the applicant had noted that it will be 7 feet 4 inches tall and clad with PVC boards, smooth EIFS, and pre-finished metal to match the existing and new principal structure materials. Final elevations will be required for site plan review, and staff will review those to verify compliance with refuse enclosure requirements. Here are the proposed building elevations. So the applicant is proposing to install a new covered building entrance along the southwest corner of the building. So the applicant has stated that the building materials will be a combination of stone veneer and architectural metals to match the existing building materials. So staff is supportive of the proposed entrance design, as it will match the existing building materials to meet design standard requirements. So with that, staff recommends approval of the SIP amendment with the findings and conditions in your staff report.
Thank you. Are there any technical questions to staff? Any technical questions? All right, I'm seeing none, so I'm going to open a public comment period on this one because it is an SIP. Is there any, is the applicant here and wish to make a statement? Yes. Approach the podium, sir. What's his name? No, it's TJ Carroll.
Hello, my name is Mike Carrolls, 1418 Hazel Street, working on New Vision Center. You just previously spoke about. The exterior hardscaping was revised to omit that eastern sidewalk, so we're not really doing any hardscaping. New hardscaping, we're actually replacing green space, or replacing with green space. We're replacing hard pavement. As you can see at the top of the plan right there, there's 7 spaces that turn into green space for about half of it, yeah, and that would be a code compliant refuse enclosure. So that is portion of the exterior work, and then the new entry canopy, which is basically just an asymmetrical, contemporary looking pointy thing that lends occupants into the building. It'll be visual interesting, but yeah, we're looking to add on to this building. It's lived a good life. The previous owner spared no expense, and it is a beautiful building. So it'll live a very long and healthy life as a optometry clinic with your permission.
You have no problem with the added landscaping points?
Nope.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other members of the public that wish to speak on this? Any other members of the public that wish to speak? Seeing none, I'm going to close the public comment period. We don't need a closing statement from the applicant. Commission, the action is upon you.
Motion to adopt the findings and recommendations as stated in the staff report.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Any discussion? All right, seeing none, let's have a roll call vote, please.
Ms. Shireman?
Aye.
Mr. Lowenstein?
Aye.
Mr. Nichols?
Aye.
Ms. Davy?
Aye.
Councilmember Esslinger?
Aye.
Ms. Prop?
Aye.
Vice Chair Kiefer?
Aye.
Chairman Perry?
Aye.
Motion carried 8-0.
Wonderful, thank you. Last item on the agenda is adjournment.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. We can have a voice vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned.
All right.